Dun, dun, dun. Welcome to another episode of the Top Corner Podcast. Your host today is Jordan, and your co-host today is Julian. Today is 01/15/2025. We are 15 days into the new years.
How are you liking this year so far?
I gotta put some resolutions down. I gotta make sure before I hit the same time next year, I am a little bit ahead, if not working towards my goals.
Yeah.
It's gotta be a thing. How about yourself?
Couldn't be worse. I'm kidding. It's actually been okay. Recovering from illness has been great.
Yeah.
Finally feeling like myself the last couple of days. Doing some really good side project stuff at the moment, and so we're kind of firing on all cylinders here, ready to just get this whole year started. And
Yeah.
yeah.
All right then, man. Let's kick in. A round of applause first.
We don't quit.
Yeah.
We don't quit. It's an early day today for us. Nobody knows.
It is. Well, let's start with a little bit of news here. Ruben Amorim, the new United coach. It looks like United's been linked to Victor Gyökeres.
Yeah.
That's an interesting name.
It is. Yes.
He has scored 32 goals in 30 games across all competitions so far. He is one of the guys that they're looking into to bring him for a striker position at United, which I thought Arsenal will also try to gun for him, but
they've been rumored for the last, I think, 2 windows or so of it never quite the same level of convincing as other players, but let's be honest, with Arsenal, it doesn't feel like they're ever serious in the window anymore.
Yes.
Yes.
And it looks like Bayern are interested in Gyökeres too. But I feel like if they had a run-up, I feel like the attachment, probably the relation that he has with his coach, former or ex-coach, might get United a bonus point to get him to United. I feel like that will be, if they decide to really, really go for him.
And this is one of those guys, I think, like this one makes sense for if you are his former coach.
Yeah.
This makes sense of who you bring in. That star striker, not quite the, we're going to round up half the fucking gang from Ajax and bring them all in into it. Like, you're a star striker, a star defender, somebody that's, in their prime, because this kid is he's 26.
Yeah.
So he's in his physical prime at this moment. So you said how many goals in how many games was this? 32
goals in 30 games across all competition.
Okay.
Yeah.
Where do you think, so 32 and 30, where do you think that then rests when you're doing that in the Premier League?
I think he might get a little bit less, but I think as a striker, because he's a pure striker, and looking at his way and style of play, I feel like he will still be getting his goal, because that's across all competition. It's not just one competition, and he probably will average, at least I can see him averaging, if not 25 or 30, because that's usual. 25 is usually a good one for the Premier League, but that's just in the Premier League, or 22 to 25. But Haaland and the new guys have shown that you can do more. Yeah,
because we've had 5 Champions League 4 Champions League matches so far. So let's theorize that, and let's say at this point in the league, if he was in this league right now, in the Premier League, he's probably putting up 13, 14 goals so far. And at that point, that puts him between the Chris Wood, Cole Palmer conversation. If we're just kind of breaking down those numbers by half of what he's put up in the Portuguese league, which I think is pretty fair.
Yeah.
So if he's able to do anything close to that, that's a very worthwhile signing. But also you have to think about the service that he's getting in the midfield. Bruno Fernandes looks great still. But they've got some things to work out in terms of distributing the ball. But they're ending on high notes, and this is the time to bring in a guy that could change things around for you, because the morale is shifting.
Yes, the morale is shifting, definitely, and we're gonna talk about that. And let's go to Marcus Rashford. There's been there's some rumors about him here, then and it looks like, well, at first AC Milan seem interested, but they're not interested in him anymore. because they have Okafor, where he switched to Leipzig, and that deal also collapsed with Rashford at the same time. But Barcelona boss Hansi Flick feels like he might get a lot more out of him, and it looks like he's interesting. He says, one of the representative on the other side is saying that Hansi Flick liked the way he plays, his versatility, and it feels like he might get more out of him playing at Barcelona.
Well, let's be honest. I'm not sure that it's that much. It's that difficult to get more out of somebody that's consistently been getting very little. It's like, you certainly can't get less out of Rashford than current, for one reason or another. The issue is that, like, Rashford at Barcelona, where's he fitting? Like, he's not starting,
which is interesting. But I feel like they're gonna give him the left side, because look at Rafinha. Rafinha under Xavi was crash. But Rafinha this year is killing it because of the system.
I mean, you've got to. He'd be fine in rotation, but he's not taking over for Lewandowski in the center.
No,
Yamal on the right or Rafinha on the left. So, like, you've got to have. I mean, I understand if you want somebody to come in for 30 minutes at the end of a game, but, like, he's not starting over anybody. So if you're bringing him in for rotation, that's fine. Is he okay with that? Because he has a history of sort of shutting off when things don't go his way. Mm-hmm. Is he signing with the intent of being rotation?
I think this might be a new change for him, in the sense that he goes there for a challenge. If he's going to battle for his, position, then
I don't want to challenge against those three right now. Like,
you never know.
Yeah,
because, like, United is not going to work your way.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
It's not
I just mean, like, if I'm lacking confidence, I don't think I want to fight against Rafinha for my position right now.
Which is interesting. I feel like I could get that, because Rafinha is not, although he's playing great this year, but let's not forget that even he has so many dips in form. He's not the most consistent all-around player.
He's more consistent now than he ever has been.
Yes.
But that still does not mean that he's quite every single game.
You had last year he wasn't good. You had some other years, So I think that him going there and trying to, because there's some games that Rafinha don't play too. Yeah. Rotation-wise, as you say, might be good. I feel also the change of environment might be also good for him.
I could see him rotating in the center. With Lewandowski, because because Lewandowski's shown now at this point that his first touch is so good that he needs no pace. Mm-hmm. He can be in a wheelchair, and for some reason that front wheel, perfect touch, and it's going in. So, but what if he's coming into the center at the 70th minute? 75th minute with the pace that now your defenders don't, you've been worn down chasing after Lewandowski and his phenomenal dribbling. That makes sense to me a little bit more than, he's not starting over Yamal. Mm-hmm. He probably has less energy than Yamal, because Yamal's like 12 years old. Yeah. You know what I mean? But I mean, you're right. If Rafinha is lacking some form at times, he can come in on the left. But I could really see them bring him in the center forward to sort of help. With Lewandowski's fitness.
Bayern wants Kobe Mainoo, the guy. Is it Kobe? Yeah. From United.
A lot of people do.
Apparently, he is earning $20,000 a week. And now that he's been exposed to the league and to everyone, where people are seeing a lot of potential, because he is a prospect. He's not the star player yet, but he has a lot of promising future in him. He's a prospect. He plays well. And Bayern apparently is interested in him. And he also, I don't know where he sits, what side of the fence he sits on, but it looks like he wants more. He wants $200K a week. And
don't we all? Don't we all? I don't pity the man.
The Red Devils are reluctant to meet those demands. Do you feel like that might be a catalyst for him to say, you know what? If you guys are paying me $20,000 currently, and I want 200, but if those guys give me 100, I would just go for them. I'm young. That's a great club.
Well, that's a great club, and they really need you right now. Like, I'm looking at the starting lineup, the core midfield that we know from Bayern. You've got Leon Goretzka, who has not been in proper form for a while. Yeah. You have Joshua Kimmich, who has been not only not the best in form the last couple of seasons, but has had several links to different clubs. You have Conrad Leimer, who is, the brightest of those three. But, I mean, you see a place for someone that's been performing at the level of Kobbie Mainoo.
Yeah.
I see where he fits into that, sitting right behind Jamal Musiala in the midfield, feeding him the ball for the creative input from the midfield. Yeah, I mean, that's a really good position for him to be in. I actually didn't know that was an interest for that they had interest in him.
Yeah,
and that he seems like he's a bit more interested in that as well. And I mean, I understand wanting to stay in England as an English national.
Yeah.
You always want to stay, like, if you have the ability to stay in your home nation, regardless of being English or not. Usually, you like to do that.
That is true.
If a Spanish player can stay in La Liga at a high position, they'll always do that, other than going somewhere else.
Yeah.
Italy's the same way. Germany's the same way. So, but if destiny calls at a club like Bayern, yeah, and that would be a really good position.
And then you think also about the fact that if he's been rumored that he's not happy about the money, and thinking about the Red Devils in a sense, they're thinking, oh, well, he came from the academy. We're supposed to, we invested in this guy, so we're supposed to just get back our investment. And if we pay 100 grand, he's just 18, 19. We're not really getting back the investment, really. But I don't know how they're thinking, because if I'm them, I'll probably try to increase his salary for him to stay, because he's a product of the team.
The whole point is to grow from the academy and pay them good wages. And if you do that and they stay and they're happy, you're still paying them the same kind of money that every other club's paying, but you're not paying transfer wages to bring people in. That's where you're saving your money.
Yeah.
You don't save your money by paying your players less.
Yeah. Plus, they might also be susceptible of wearing the badge more to your heart when playing than other guys. Because the guys is, okay, it's a career, it's a job for me. That's cool. But there's not that fire when I'm playing, because this is where I was born. This is my club. This is where I was molded. I'm playing different.
Once you go to a couple of different clubs, especially if you've left your childhood or academy club behind, it's difficult to get that mercenary mindset out.
Yeah.
And subconsciously, I mean, we're all human beings. Once that kind of is instilled in you, you can unintentionally lose that little extra push. I mean, look, these guys are athletes. They know their bodies better than pretty much anybody on the face of the earth. But that does not mean that the body is a constant well that they can draw from.
Yeah.
They can draw more than most people can get from their bodies. But asking them, for any given day, just be like, hey, I want you to play like it's the Champions League final today.
Yeah.
Not even they can't quite do that at times. And yeah, when you've been to 4 different clubs in 7 years, you start to sort of just lose a little bit of that feeling of, this is it. This is the big, even if it's a big club, because you're out of touch with the organization, with the fans, with the city, with your coach. You know what I mean? Like just there's all those different things around you that can affect you. So
that is that. And let's talk about the FA. FA Cup.
Let's skip the FA.
Arsenal versus Manchester United.
Yeah.
Oh dang! I spell Manchester. That's a little typo.
just spell what you do.
But what do you think about when I look at Manchester United, and especially when Ruben Amorim got a couple of games, and winning there, losing there, but there's something that clicked in my mind. It's like they are playing with much more vigor, Then now, when you look at it in the progression, they seem to be playing more like a team.
Yeah.
Although they're not here yet, they're not there yet, but they seem to be more cohesive, more. You see the passion in them, and that's probably why I feel like he's trying to put out people like Rashford, because it might feel like he might disrupt the flow. I want people that, first of all, to start building, we need people that wants to play. You need to want to play. I want you playing head, shoulders, and toes on that field. I want you run up and down, not jogging. When the ball is out of possession, I want you to go. When there's a defender, I want you to chase the guy.
Yeah,
that's how they're playing now.
And I think, and we've had this conversation on the podcast as well, they're playing better when they have, in theory, less to lose.
Yeah.
When they're playing against a side that, by and large, is considered to be superior to them in terms of the quality of players in the field. They seem to be able to shed any sort of ego or concern about what's going to happen. They really seem to struggle mostly when they are supposed to be the bigger side, dictating control, because that's what happens. The smaller side in any given match usually concedes a little bit more. They sit back because they're waiting to absorb the pressure, and they seem to do a little bit better that way than putting their foot forward first and really dictating the tempo and really attempting to create chances on their own. They seem better off when they're on that back foot, able to counter and sort of find those improvisational moments to then work against the bigger side. And they've done that recently, and they did it here again. And Arsenal are. We've also talked about it before, and it was perfect here as well. They have taken a little of that pressure away offensively for fear of conceding.
Yeah.
But what they've done is they've then opened the window to then be countered. There's an irony behind it. We can't rush forward too much because they'll counter, but really, if you smother them properly, they can't counter. That's the whole point.
Yeah.
So but if you don't really bear down on them, then you leave that channel open, and it's their back four is not the issue. It's that lack of spark and really midfield pressure. Because even like guys like Gabriel Jesus he'll press on defense.
Yeah.
But there's a lot of physicality missing from Martinelli. Trossard has lost a lot of physicality. He seems like he's kind of lost some of his will, and then a bunch of missed chances all around. But ultimately, Kai Havertz being in the forward position is not really working for the finished product there.
Yeah, that's why I think Arsenal should try to go. Actually, I read, and it was a rumor. Not exactly
I
sure.
got a text from some number I don't know.
Not exactly sure how accurate the rumor is, but it probably is 90% close to reality that they were gunning for was that guy the Juve player, Vlahovic?
Dusan Vlahovic? Yeah.
And the deal didn't go through.
Yep.
And that probably would have been great for the style of football Arsenal plays, because they really need to go for a striker. They do need. And when I looked at the game, man, Amorim did a great job at setting up a mid block, which was really difficult for Arsenal to get through. And Sterling, I don't know.
Yeah,
he's just one of those players. It's dribbling everything, but he just don't have the perfect timing. He don't know when to pass the ball, or he's dribbling too much. At the end of the day,
and unfortunately,
out of it,
he's lost that extra little step of pace. That while he always has held the ball too long, he's always not made the best choices. You couldn't deny that extra bit of pace did work in his favor and in your favor as a club.
Yeah.
He's now missing that, because at least he could get that extra bit of pace and get in behind the defender.
Yeah.
And potentially cross the ball in. But he's missing that as well, and they're really missing the Saka-Odegaard connection.
Yeah.
Quite a bit. Mikel Merino's not quite working out. I don't think that it's a disaster by any means, but they were kind of bringing him in with the expectation because of how he played in the Euros. He and Dani Olmo in the midfield of Spain really, really working well together. They thought, we've got a second Martin Odegaard there.
Yeah.
You put Rice in the middle. You put those two on the opposite sides, and they're creating unique arrangements for passes. But then all of a sudden, Martinelli's all he's good for now is ripping down the wing and giving a couple of stutter steps and holding up the defense for you. So it's not just an individual player. It's not just a center forward missing chances. Yeah. Although, let's be honest, Kai Havertz missed, I think, 2 sitters.
Yes, and the penalty.
Oof. Yeah.
Zexi, that Diallo plays well.
Bayende, except for that red card.
Yeah. Bayende, he played so well, and a lot of people now, we live in the world where recency bias is the best thing that anyone can offer right now. So what do you think about this? A lot of people that have been reading comments, either Reddit, YouTube, they've been like, since that game, I think he should be the starter instead of Onana, because he helped save the game.
I think that I agree. Recency bias is a really big issue, not just in sports, but kind of in anything culturally now. This is one of the few times I'm not in support. I'm not saying like get Onana out.
Yeah.
But what I mean, like, I'm more willing to give this guy
it's more of a chance. Okay.
Because Onana does have a lot of mistakes. He's a very brave player in terms of he steps up and he wants to take the game in his own hands.
Yeah.
He feels very responsible for what's going on, maybe outside of his own position. I think it leaves him open a couple of times.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying that, in a 1-for-1 shot blocking contest that he doesn't beat this other keeper out.
Yeah.
But I'm thinking that because the other keeper has much more to lose,
he doesn't.
Like, he doesn't want to squander the opportunity.
Yeah.
That he might play a little bit safer in a way that can work with a back line that's been having issues lately.
Yeah. I see what you're saying.
I think Onana is also used to being able to get away with that kind of stuff because he's had a more solid back line.
Yeah.
Those two things in tandem together don't quite work.
That is
to
true.
me.
Which is something they gotta. Well, it depends on the system. If you're playing right from the back, then you need probably someone like that. But if you are just right now struggling with your backline, which is not mistakes that you want to afford. Euro and Light, they play the Light play very well. He played very. I mean,
Mazraoui has been very good.
Yeah, Mazraoui. I feel like he's getting back to.
And they've all
his
stepped
form.
up too. So I do want to when I say that a lackluster back line, I don't necessarily mean that they're playing overwhelmingly bad. That they have improved in the last month and a half or so, without a doubt, universally, every single one of them. Mazraoui most, I think. So I do want to say that they've improved a little bit, not enough though. I think to really maximize the chances that Onana takes in a match-to-match basis. That's more of what I mean.
That's true. But actually, right now, you guys are the most hated club and fans and everything, man. Just I heard someone say Arteta with the Ben Laden tactics. So that's interesting. Well, let's go to Barcelona and Real Madrid, man. We fell again.
Oh my God.
Casablanca fell down.
The question, when are you changing your fandom? When are you jumping ship?
No, I don't jump ships like that.
Who are you jumping ship to? I know you've already got the jersey on underneath the shirt.
No, people think I jump ships like, nah, it has to be worse. It's because we just lost 1-2 games, It has to be in a situation where, think about like a United kind of situation. Then I'll be gone before they realize it. I'll be like, I'm out of here. I ain't supporting you guys no more. But I think this Madrid team, and there's a lot. Mbappe had his best game for me, I think, that day. But the whole team didn't even play good.
Yeah.
I think there's a couple of fixes. First of all, they need a back line. They are struggling, playing people out of position.
Yeah.
Tchouaméni trying to set an offside trap with a player that's not offside on the other side, and you're not even looking at it.
And I think that it's an odd positioning mistake. So I get it. Injuries are injuries, and when you have people out, people have to play out of position. That's just what you do. I don't think that the best policy, though, is to have your center back that's playing out of position next to your right back
that's playing out of position,
who's playing out of position and who has been in very bad form lately and who is not known for his defensive quality. If anything, you gotta flip him. I think Rudiger like at that point, your center backs, I don't care if you prefer left or right.
Yeah.
You got to figure that out. But Rudiger next to Vasquez, I think
that couldn't work.
Minimizes a little bit more than Tchouaméni.
Yes.
I think that Tchouaméni paired with Mendy's pace can sort of make up for that and let Tchouaméni sit back a little bit more. But I think the Rudiger being a bit more solid in that that center back position would alleviate the Vasquez issue a little bit.
Yeah, they what do you call him? Carlo Ancelotti needs to think again. I feel like at some point they also due for a really tactical play, in a sense. I know they like the freestyle stuff, but at least if they had some kind of tactics, because usually, especially you playing guys against you playing Barcelona, if they had did this after that goal, that when Barcelona scored or equalized, they should have figured out how do we make sure we don't get scored on, and how do we score. Barcelona is really good at doing this offside trap. They're really good at with that mid block. They have a problem with that mid block, you know. So how do you? I mean, and you have the players for it, but your midfield was nothing happened in the midfield.
I was gonna say, and Barcelona is so energetic.
Yes,
like you have to put that extra bit in just to match their step.
Yes,
and guys like Vinicius Jr. not tracking back, walking.
Yeah,
in transition, it's like you can't do that.
He didn't even play good. You have Vinicius didn't play good. Bellingham didn't play good.
Yeah,
I feel like that game they should have let play Aragula for that midfield, because who do you have in the midfield that could be a creator, and that's not old. If you had paired, I feel Camavinga with Aragula would have been better.
And Camavinga did not have a good game.
He did not have a good game.
He
was very bad game. And this is probably one of his worst games. Well, I don't know all his career, but I think this anything
this
you play
season
at
for sure.
Well,
and then it was unfortunate because even Rodrigo looked like their best in terms of actually applying energy to build up.
Yeah.
He had several good chances. He was dribbling all over on that right wing, but then he was making some bad passes, and he's responsible for something. Yeah, so it's always unfortunate to see that if someone's having an all around bad day, you get it, you take it on the chin, you move on. Yeah. It's really unfortunate when a player is at any given moment in that match playing it like an 8 out of 10, and then they just make like a 2 out of 10 decision.
Yeah,
you're like, oh, like at least when you're playing poorly, just play poorly. Don't like give us these long runs of quality and then just almost self-sabotage in those moments.
I mean, you also gotta understand, like you played the first game Vasquez against Rafinha, it didn't work out. Then you playing the same Vasquez is not good physically, and he is not even that fast to match Rafinha. When he's good is when you're playing teams that on that side their left wing is not as fast as Rafinha.
Dude,
and technical as Rafinha.
And within like 8 to 15 yards, Rafinha is unbelievable fast, dude. Like,
because guess what? He gonna beat you on 1-on-1.
Yeah.
And there's just nothing he could do. If that was Carvajal, it would have been different. But Vasquez is not, and he's been repeating the same thing. So I wonder if Ancelotti has, in the sense of creativity, he's just there. There's nothing. He has the effective.
And I admire
create more.
I admire the kind of dynasty mentality of. I like what was it the start of last season when they made like they signed Bellingham or something, and then they were like, we're done in the transfer window. When like they didn't have to be done.
Yeah,
they could have kept going, but it was almost like a stamp of confidence. Like we're done. I admired that mentality, but. Guys, you gotta.
They need a solid back.
In January, you need several moves in January.
Because and it's been like that for the rest because your guys are injured. Who do you bring in? I feel like they need a solid central back and at least a left back. Because they need a right back too.
Yeah. But Mendy's been okay though.
That's what I'm saying. At least go for a left back. The reason why I say that, at least Mendy has speed and he's physical. But Vasquez, on the contrary, has none of those.
Yeah.
Two things.
Do you just go ahead and, because we had this debate, and now that this game took place, I think that it makes it a little more clear. Do you just go ahead and get Alexander-Arnold for $40 million?
I would
early?
Do it because guess what? Alexander-Arnold wants to leave.
Yeah.
In a sense, he will be cheap because his contract is expiring. I'll go for him.
Yeah.
I'll go for him.
But you're talking about in January, now.
Yeah, definitely. Because you
I
need
agree.
a solid left back, and although his defensive acumen is not as high, but that stuff Vasquez was doing, you're not gonna do that on Trent and all, especially when he's trying to play.
And not only that, I mean, and Trent's never been the most defensive minded, but he brings something,
that attacking quality.
Yes, and so Vasquez doesn't quite bring that either. So you've got somebody that's out of position, that's not on either part of the transition, playing at a level not only of that club but of the high level clubs. Like he couldn't perform that way at Bayern Munich, at Dortmund, at PSG, at United right now currently. Mazraoui's playing better than him. Dallow's playing better than him. So you can't quite get away with that in the top flight in English football, period.
Yes, that's
true.
So
that has to change.
That has to change. Man, Barcelona was killing these guys. These young guys are playing. Now, do you feel like, before we even get back to Barcelona, do you think Barcelona and Liverpool, because I feel like that's unless Madrid fixed their defense, I feel like that's the game that the same level at this point in time.
Yeah.
You know,
well, I was thinking about it a couple of days ago. I was thinking during the match while they were beating the shit out of Madrid. You have to be Champions League favorites now because you have the team, the winningest team in that competition, the one that when they're not playing that well, they still seem to dig something out in the Champions League and make something of it. You have them in your pocket. You know exactly what they do. That is true. If you were playing this well, but in the Bundesliga, you still look at Real Madrid and go, it's their competition, man. They seem to have a way to do this, but no, you're smacking up that team. You're doing it in your domestic league, and I get it. The mindset can be different, but there's nothing better than to have that team that's capable of that historically in your pocket at any given moment. So that's why, to me, I think even in Champions League competition, they are right there with Liverpool to take the title home.
Yeah, I think right now, judging just by the state of every league right now, those two will be a solid matchup. I'm also interested to see, because they both are fast. They both seem to be always a step ahead. But the thing, Liverpool don't play people out of position like that. So I want to see how that will match up against, a Barcelona side against a Mbappe side. I mean, Liverpool side. But look at it. Why do you want to always play Tchouaméni as the central back, although he's a defensive midfielder? Why don't you just bring in Asensio?
Because he's younger.
He's a central
when he
back.
came in for a couple of games. He played like 2 games back to back, I think, against some lower table sides. Yeah, he played well. I get that.
That should have been these 2 matchups, or how many match he played, should have been, this is your warm-up game. So you play during Barcelona. Then you bring back Tchouaméni.
When you're at halftime and you take Camavinga off because of that ridiculous yellow card. I don't know why you pulled him down. That was ridiculous. You make the transition then. You bring Asensio in at center back. You probably move Tchouaméni up to take to replace Camavinga there. Because maybe his defensive quality in the midfield can free up Valverde, who is hanging on for dear life. I still think that he's the most underrated player on the planet. Because I think that he's one of the best players on the planet. And the problem with doing everything well is that when nobody else is doing well, you're somehow still surviving, but you're surviving by covering every single person.
He was everywhere. It's like Klaken. It was just everywhere.
He's amazing.
So I think they gotta really go for figure out the defense, because you still have a game against because Barcelona, they were saved by that red card. Barcelona would have given them at least 8. I'm talking because it was too fast. They didn't have any response to anything Barcelona was doing. They were hopeless. And shout out to Barcelona. These guys are playing good. Balde, he is amazing.
Yeah, he's very good.
He's amazing.
That was a better performance than we're used to seeing. I'm not saying he's usually a poor performer, but that was one thing I took note of, and this one was, wow, he really. They all felt very comfortable, and it'll be interesting to see again, because the next El Clasico, I checked the schedule, is in like mid-May. Toward the very end of the season. So
that's why.
And Madrid's hosting. So by then you assume Madrid's figured this out, and that Barcelona have maintained form. This could actually be a very good matchup by May, despite the last couple of matchups being oddly disproportionate in Barcelona's favor. You have to think by May that Madrid have figured something out.
If they don't figure something out, then I blame him solely on Ancelotti. The reason is because you have seen this twice. And in fact, the second time you should have fixed it. I would have played everybody in position, put Vasquez out, figure out some, even if you have to take from the academy. So what? But Madrid, all those guys, Barcelona, all those guys are just academies guys. They were just last year. 8 of them. Yeah,
that's why Barcelona is so good, is because they all like Balde was in that squad when he was 18, 19.
Yeah,
and now he's not 18 or 19 anymore, and he's playing like it. Pedri, Gavi, they're all like so. You need to bring guys that have less accolades and less experience, but are used to that position.
Yes,
are used to that style of play within that club. That always seems to work a little bit better than just
sometimes
moving somebody
around. They might even play well because they feel like, hey, this is my shot. I'm not leaving here, you know. And you watch these guys playing, you feel like they have more. They're more synchronized. There's a cohesiveness. There's chemistry. They're not struggling. They're just playing.
Well, I think that we're also kind of like, no one's really talking about how odd it is that Tchouameni's playing center back right now, because he's their holding midfielder.
That's why I said at the beginning.
I know, like look at other clubs that are at that level right now. Look at Liverpool. Ryan Gravenberch is their holding midfielder. Could you imagine them starting him in a center back against Virgil van Dijk?
Never do that.
No, you're never going to see Van Dijk and Gravenberch together. Yeah. You're not going to see that. You're going to see Jarell Kwanzaa, and if Konate's out, because that's his position.
Yes,
that's his position. So the fact that they're even considering that, and it is an odd thing to me.
It's bad because you might say, well, my CBs are injured, but you do have CBs.
Yeah.
You do have CBs. Just put them
and
there.
And Tchouameni's not one of them.
Yeah, Tchouameni is honestly good when he's holding midfield.
Of course,
when he's CB, he does a lot of defensive. It will fly against small teams, but you know when they play, when it's Real against Barcelona, it don't really matter if it's not a Champions League or it's a Champions League final or whatever, because that game is more important than some cups. It's like if you lose that game, you lose everything.
Yeah.
So
and this was a cup game.
This was a cup game, and this was the final.
You had your enemies on stage with the streamers and the big cup. Rafinha had his dumb little sunglasses on.
The crazy part about it is like they don't even. They kind of minimizing subconsciously, because they're not even thinking these guys are at the level, because they're kids. They just they're just having fun.
Did you see the funny ass video of they were all on the stage and someone's dad comes sliding in, and they're like this club's so young, they're not celebrating with their kids. They're just bringing their parents on.
Yeah, I think what was that? I think that was, I forgot exactly who was that. Kubasi.
It might have been Kubasi.
Yeah.
But very funny. And someone was like, and his dad's young enough to hit a knee slide and not take his knees out. Like, it's like, it's why they're all like 18 to 22. It's unbelievable. If they can hold that squad together, that's wild.
Hansi Flick, one thing I've realized, he strives with a young squad.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
What he did with Bayern in that pre-COVID time, that was amazing.
Well, and I think that they understand. He does, and I think that good managers understand as well. It's kind of like being a coach, being a manager is kind of like being the president of a country. You don't want to leave, even if you had a good term. You don't want to leave it in a bad place for the next person. You think that you would, because you're like, oh well, now like see how bad he is. Oh, like setting them up to fail. But your citizens understand that, and they don't like that. Even if you don't like the person that's succeeding you. You want it to be in a good place. So yes, facilitating a young squad that even if, when you're asked to leave, most of that squad's still around and they're in their mid-20s, at least the squad's together and they're playing well even when you're gone.
Yes.
You're not just setting it up for you, and then when you leave, it all falls apart. The fans don't like that, and they'll look down on their experience with you because of how they were afterwards. Fans can link that stuff together.
That is true. Next time, I think what they should play, if Modric is coming in rotation, let Arda Güler play. And if when Modric comes, because Arda Güler plays kind of Modric in the sense that they can bring that flair. Then you can really have someone that can, with that flair, help Bellingham, and Bellingham can help distribute it. Vinicius was nowhere to be found.
Nowhere.
Bellingham could have, Mbappe kind of played what he could. There's nothing he could do more. The ball wasn't coming because they couldn't get out of the midfield. Yeah. I think they have to learn from the mistake. I'm interested to see what they got for us, and I think it's in May. It's in May. And but that Barcelona squad, I'm interested to see if they will play, if they can play against Liverpool, because right now those two are killing it.
I'm checking the remaining games that Barcelona have in the Champions League. Let me see. Benfica host them next week. So that's interesting. That's a good little match. And then that might be a must watch. They finish up hosting Atalanta in the Champions League.
No, I think that would be difficult for them.
Yeah,
because it's defensive.
Yeah, and I think that Atalanta are pretty underrated. They're not playing the best in the Champions League, but I always like when the Europa League winner comes in and does well.
Yeah,
because they really shouldn't be there. So yeah,
okay,
that'd be a good match.
Well, like I said, and I'll say it again, go watch us on all platforms that you can get your hands on. Instagram,
grab it.
Facebook, Spotify, TikTok. Even if they ban it.
Just get it, man.
Just get it.
Just get it done.
Go and watch it. Support us. Press the bell notification and give us the likes.
Yep, and watch the North London Derby.
It is this week?
It is in like 3 hours.
Oh, dang.
Yeah, it is. Actually, it's in 2 hours. It's noon right now for everybody. This is coming out later in the evening, so you'll probably get this episode around like 5 or 6.
Okay.
But yeah, I'll be watching that on Peacock, on the cock. That's what I like to call it. Streaming from the It's their fault for naming something stupid.
Have a good one, guys. Take care and catch us next week.
Goodbye.